we are back with the second round of the main stream of Clash of Commandos 2, the Saturday main event. I'm here with Samuel,
Yes, hello.
and together, that was a long waiting room. Together, we're having a look at Hei Bai against Aang, the signature matchup for the previous standard set, right?
Maybe. Not sure. But it's a very spicy matchup, I would say.
Yeah, I think so too.
Oh, you mean like the most relevant commanders from each from the Avatar set.
Yeah, and also, like we have two legendaries from the latest standard set, or I mean, Hei Bai is from the Commander edition, but still, they're both relevant in the format, and now they're facing each other.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Hei Bai is from the Jumpstart product. There
all
was
right, okay, fair,
no
fair.
Avatar commander decks.
I always think that it's the Commander product, but you're right, it's Jumpstart.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's assume it's the Commander product. Anyways,
Yes.
starting into the game with not many things happening. We have a Brain Surge countered by Mana Leak.
Our first two spells of the game.
Yeah.
Before that, the Lorien Revealed was cycled. Each player is hitting their land drops. Hei Bai just took a fetch land back, which, as far as I know, you are allowed to do if you play the wrong land.
Yeah,
And
we
the game
talked
state
about that
hasn't changed
recently.
since you can pick it back up. I'm pretty sure that works.
Yeah. I remember I had a judge case where the judge did not allow me to do that. And we just recently talked about it. That many players refer to how it's handled on MTGO. Most of the time, it's not relevant, but there are these pseudo rules that say whenever you have, as long as you have the card in hand and it's not like on the table yet and whatsoever, but most of the time your opponent says, well, no problem. Do you think it's worth it to counter a Brain Surge?
It's interesting. I think against Hei Bai, countering a Brain Surge is sometimes more um, more okay.
Mm-hmm.
Because if he does have a Sanctum in hand that he doesn't want to play out, it gives him the opportunity to shovel that card back in. Also, a Brain Surge is much different than a Brainstorm.
That's
Like,
true.
I think countering cantrips is not correct. Brain Surge gives you an extra card, and especially in the situation where the Aang player had 4 lands and tapped 2 to counter the 3 mana Brain Surge,
Okay, you just talked about
he still had
countering.
2 lands open.
You just talked about countering cantrips is wrong. I think giving away the Mental Misstep for the Ponder here is a bit not greedy, but too optimistic. I think.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, I understand the sentiment of saying, "Okay, well, I'm still playing a tempo deck, but 6 lands in play is not like a prohibitive amount." So, you
Right.
are not preventing your opponent from drawing really significantly developing their game plan by countering this ponder, and especially as we see in the hand of Hei Bai right now, he does play Wash Away, he does play Mana Tithe, which he has. He also will play Force Spike and removal spells, and if the Aang player is ever going to win the game and start getting on the board, then it's important to still have Mental Misstep as an answer to win those counter wars or um, to interact with the removal spells.
Yeah,
So I would have kept the Mental Misstep there.
me too. I mean, there are situations in which you can definitely go for that. If you see that your opponent is digging for lands turn by turn, and they are really on a limited amount of lands, then you can think about it. But in
Yeah.
this situation, as you said, you shouldn't do that. By the way, I love the Restless Anchorage, I think it's called. The manland from Ixalan. And here we have a legendary from Ixalan. It's Malcolm entering the battlefield. So far, not much pressure from the tempo deck.
Yep. We see a ley line against the Malcolm, deciding between casting the spell snare and to counter the Malcolm or to remove it from the board. I think I would have also removed it from the board here since he has Leyline and Prismatic ending in hand, and there will inevitably be some form of counter war to when thinking about putting Hei Bai on the board. And once it lands and gets the draw cards enchantment, then the game might even be over for Aang. It's going
Yeah.
to be
So
difficult
there was a
to
judge call in
outvalue.
between, just to let you know, guys, which we edited out. I'm not exactly sure what was the question there, since we don't have any audio from the mainstream, but
It might have been checking the text on Airbin to see if he gets to recast the leyline right away. That's something that can be thought about, because I think you can't recast the spell right away. You have to
you
wait
can.
a turn, right?
You can.
You can?
The,
Okay.
the ability you described is with plot. You plot a spell, you
Ah,
can
it's with
cast
plot.
it
Yeah.
next turn. And here we have the mana type. Now the Tishana Sidebinder was
Which
trying to
this would have been an incredible time to still have that mental misstep in hand.
exactly. Tishana Sidebinder coming down to stifle the Hei Bai activation would be great. And here even hitting 2 of the 3 best Sanctum shrines actually. So this one
There
draws
would
an
have
additional
even
card.
been, without it in the graveyard, there would have even been the ability to after the Hei Bai enters the, or if he waited, he could have tidebinded the Honden trigger by exiling it with Aang. If it stuck on the battlefield, he would have been able to keep at bay the card draw part. But now we have a subtlety pitch with an Aang airbending it, so deploying another creature is going to be pretty expensive. Oh yeah, solitude. Wait, am I missing something? Paying 8 mana for Hei Bai?
He activated the Mist Rise Village actually in
Ah,
order to not lose against counter magic. And here, while still searching for the second shrine and probably passing the turn, the Aang player is deciding to. And here we have the Sanctum. And at that point, it seems the Hei Bai player is not aware of the fact that you have to shuffle the entire library with the ability and not
yeah.
just the part that you revealed. But I talked to the player afterwards, and he told me that he's playing a lot of Ezika, and that's where that comes from, because
Yeah.
Ezika tells you to shuffle the part. And yeah, afterwards he corrected that and shuffled his entire library.
Very interesting how we've had this ability twice on a card now.
Yep.
With revealing cards from the top of your library until you find something on a 5-color commander.
Yeah, but I also talked to him, and I mean, most of these abilities are worded in a way that you have one part that you shuffle, and then you put it on the bottom of your library, and
Yeah.
then you
Yeah.
have a few, and Hei Bai belongs to the few where you actually shuffle your entire library, right? So it's easy
Yeah.
to be a bit confused about that.
I think that is a more modern wording of the card. Where I think shuffling the whole library is something that, the newer sorts of design are more likely to do.
Yeah, I think so too. It seems that, and I think they also said that I've recently read an article about Wizards is experimenting with reducing shuffle time because it takes time in tournaments. And, even if it's like a small detail, it's still a difference to shuffle your entire library or just a part and then put things on the bottom, and your opponent still has to cut some of those parts and whatsoever, and shuffle on their own. So
Yeah,
this might save you a couple of seconds.
just shuffling the whole library, yeah.
Just easier.
So, we are looking at a pretty difficult struggle to beat down 21 life from the Aang deck.
Yeah.
There's an Abrupt Decay in hand on the Hei Bai player's side. Currently, there's no answer to Solitude, unless he handles both of the creatures in play.
Mhm.
But he could. Okay, he's going to
Is it
Kaya's
Kaya's
Guile.
Guile? Okay. You
Probably
know,
sacrifice and create a 1/1, I would think.
Hei Bai is, as you know, guys, we recently had a focus session. I played against Marcus against a couple of decks, and I was also playing the control variant for a couple of games ahead of that. And I really like the dynamics of the deck because not only that you get these pseudo monarchs out of your 99, but also because the panda isn't too scary with a 4/4 body, but it's a creature that you kind of have to get rid of on the opposing side, but you don't really. Because if you do that, it enables a second Sanctum for your opponent, unless you can somehow interact spell based or stack based, I mean. So, and that's what we see here basically, that the Aang player has to get rid of Hei Bai, but it results in more and more Sancties. What is the plural of of Sanctum? Whatever. So we end up in more and
Yep.
more card draw, which eventually might win the game for the control deck, right? So
Yeah.
this seems to be Pandora's
I would have
box.
been a fan of killing the man land with the Abrupt Decay.
You cannot, because Abrupt Decay says non-land permanent.
Oh, it says non-impermanent.
And
Right. Okay,
here
never mind.
is a bit of
Never mind.
an early concession to me, but I assume that the Aang player realized, okay, my opponent is drawing 3 cards each turn in addition. So they will always
Well,
end up,
four
yeah, 3 in
four
addition.
cards, discarding one,
You're
which,
right, you're right. 4
you know,
cards
you
plus
s
discard 1, so five cards in total with the
yeah,
usual
so
draw.
yeah,
Yep.
which
Um,
is, I think, is impossible to fight through
exactly. And that
when he's
that might have
still at.
been the realization. We have 30 minutes on the clock, and
Exactly.
maybe I just concede here. And from that perspective, I can understand it, and this might be a good decision here from him.
I would also agree. I mean, like, there's very little that can happen on the Aang player's side that would give him a victory, even if he fights this for a long time.
Yeah,
And and if he fights any longer, then there is the possibility that they run out of time to play game two. And if they run out of time to play game two, and he doesn't manage to, then he's just losing 1-0. Or yeah,
yeah.
1-0-1, which just isn't a good place to be.
Especially in, like, this is the second round of the tournament. You don't want to start your day by an or with an early draw. So it makes perfectly sense here to say, well, let's just go over to the next one. We
Absolutely.
have Aang casted to airbend Pippin. Yeah. I like the way
I think so.
that I like the way that Aang is utilizing his or their commander, by saving your own spells and while still not wasting the airbend ability. Because
Yep.
that's a matchup where at some point you have to present a threat, even if it's a small one. And there might be situations in which you even think about just playing Aang, even without any airbend target, just to have
Yep.
somebody on the board that beats you. There are many situations from a combo perspective in which you would just play a Snapcaster Mage even without playing something from the graveyard, just to have like a 2/1 body against the control player. And that is more or less the same result. I think
All
if
right.
you're
Looking at 4
yeah,
lands with the
crazy.
Vendilion click means he can't take anything. He does get to see 2 new cards with the Sanctum next turn. However, with the Abandoned Air Temple, he is on a possibly a pretty fast clock. If he adds more to the board now and the Hei Bai player doesn't find a board wipe, then potentially, like, hitting for 5 this turn, and if he plays the Pippin out, then he's got 10 damage next turn, so he is staring down lethal.
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh.
how this is a fast game too, I would say.
Oh, that's nice. That's the
He has to find a
perfect card.
removal spell in his draw step. This
Yeah.
is that's crazy.
Just to remind everyone,
And
the Sanctum trigger is a May ability, so Hei Bai does
he
not
may
need
choose not
to.
to.
Exactly. And here, providing a blocker while also searching for another shrine, because
But I think the other Sanctum is not a May trigger.
it's not right.
We'll have a look.
Um, but I think
So he
the idea, no, it's definitely not a May trigger. It's a must trigger. But the idea behind this, I guess, is if he can find something in this one card next turn and wipe the board, then he's left with 2 shrines on the board and he will easily refill.
Yep.
And since you're not threatened by
Yeah, absolutely.
any spell-based damage, here even finding the 5-color shrine, which
Which is the
is
best case scenario since it
absolutely,
allows him to get the other shrine next turn. So he's putting a lot of faith into this next top deck.
yeah. But I
And,
think he has to,
if that spell Yeah, absolutely.
might have even drawn like another land. And here we have an attack phase for, he's going down to 1? That's 4,
Well,
7.
he's
No, that's
declared
already
no
lethal, right?
blockers. He activates the air temple and makes the hull breacher. Oh, no, okay, so he could have won
But why is he only going down to
because
3?
Hei Bai blocked the hull breacher, and
There's
the
the
hull
okay, yeah.
breacher got a
Was
counter,
right,
but
right, right,
yeah.
right, right. Yeah, and he decided to give um
The hull breacher
but I mean,
protection.
I don't get it still because Pippin has vigilance. Why would you not attack with Pippin in addition,
This is the
right?
worst way he could have played this turn. I
Yeah.
think Aang won in, like, 3 different ways in combat there, and he played it very wrong. He could have
Okay.
If he decided not
Nonetheless,
to attack with Pippin, given
remember not
the
everyone is used to play on cam, so maybe
Absolutely,
players
absolutely.
are a bit nervous
Just
here.
just noting these are the so when you're in tournaments, sometimes reset and think about, okay, if I'm presenting lethal, let's actually present lethal and not fumble it. Mm,
Yeah. It can happen. Sometimes you
yeah, it can
overthink
it, it can happen to
certain
the best of
scenarios.
us.
Yeah. So starting with a polluted delta into hedge maze. That's a common turn 1, as we know. Always fetching for the blessed surveil land. On the other side, also a fetch for an archive, it seems. I think the last time in the last game, when the Aang player was going for the surveil, actually forgot to use the trigger end of turn. Was a bit sad, but also happens. If you shuffle too long, which I'm also guilty of, sometimes you might lose your thoughts. And here we have a
Yep,
Lorien revealed, going for another land.
lovely card.
Tundra. Yeah, really cool card.
The Just so much flexibility in the cycling, and islands are exactly what you need in this sort of deck, and
Yeah.
yeah, very cool.
Why is he looking at it? Oh. This is strangely mistaken for a surveil? because he tapped the archive? In
Maybe.
interesting situation.
Seems like it.
I
Yeah,
hope, yeah. Surveilling the Sanctum here is definitely an advantage. I would not assume this was done on purpose, but that's not the way it should be
not
played.
sure why that. Okay, yeah. Yeah, he untaps the Drowned Catacomb. So failure protected by force.
And there is a dismember. And again, the
Which
play
I
pattern.
don't yeah, I don't like waiting to dismember here. I would've, I
Would have done it
mean,
immediately.
well,
Yeah.
maybe it's better in exactly this situation where you force the opponent to airbend his failure so that you can get your Hei Bai down through counter protection.
Yeah. Yeah, I get that. I get that. Because now you enable the line again that Aang can save your creature and you can cast it later on. And
Yeah,
you've, yeah, traded 1 for 0 effectively. I mean, you've traded for tempo, okay, but still. Failure has flash, which means you can also airbend it with flash, bring it back to the battlefield. Or not airbend it, like cast from exile. That's what I meant.
yeah.
Here, okay.
Using the time where the opponent's tapped out to cast
Yeah, I'm not a big
spells.
fan. Maybe that's the intention. Okay, yeah,
Ah,
yeah.
yeah.
I
Okay,
was
that makes
wondering
sense.
because you can easily wait until end of turn, but if you want to activate Otawara for 2 to get rid of the shrine, that's actually a really cool play pattern
Yeah.
here, by the way.
So with Force of Negation gone, I th it's pretty safe to deploy the Honden. But yeah, that did cost him a turn of tempo, and
Yeah.
we'll see. So Parallax Wave is gonna keep Hei Bai off the board,
Mhm. Well, let's see
and he's
about that.
attacking for 5, but now we're gonna start seeing some Honden triggers. Um, he gets to target the failure with a prismatic ending, I think. No, he's tapping 5 with 4, 6. Oh god, what's happening here? Ah,
That's actually,
uncounterable.
yeah, not does not want to fall for the days. However, Fon is gone, which means you can just leave the mana open and then you're playing around days anyways. Force of Will is banned.
Yeah.
Remember, boys and girls. And here we have another trigger.
So he's really putting a lot of faith into the 4 cards he's gonna draw next turn. If
Uh,
there is something like a
what did he just do? Why would you, if you, why did he resolve the trigger like that? Looking
which
at,
trigger?
like the trigger from Hei Bai, didn't he just looked at the top cards? Like if you assume that you don't have an entire shuffle, then you cannot just look at the top cards until you find the Sanctum and see all the cards that you're not going to reveal, you know?
True,
You cannot
true.
do
I'm
that.
not
You,
sure what happened
you
there.
definitely can't do that. Um the way he did it earlier was perfectly fine, but this way shouldn't happen. But okay.
Okay, so it seems like he's drawn a lot of lands. We see a Ponder,
Yeah.
but
The
he
two
does not shuffle
shrines
with the Ponder,
are pretty powerful. I mean, he definitely has to find something against the board because right now Aang is presenting lethal.
and he's at 5, yeah.
And we have 9 minutes on the clock, which means very likely that the game finishes. Unless Hei Bai finds a
So he's
Emrakul.
tapping mana without having okay, so did he draw a card off the Ponder? I didn't see.
And now, since Hei Bai resolved, he should have to shuffle the library, right? Or maybe he does. He says,
He
"Well, okay,
should. Well
it's
well
randomized, and we just leave it that randomized."
well, it's not randomized because he didn't shuffle with a Ponder.
That is true. Yeah, okay, that's
Okay, so a bit of sloppy play happening
yeah,
here.
that's true.
Um, not sure how much difference it would have made, but yeah.
Yeah, it's
So he's making the last spell uncounterable and killing Pippin with a fatal push. No, what was he
He's
doing?
actually paying
Okay.
for the ward for ward 1.
Well, he doesn't have to pay for the ward if
Because
he
it's
makes the spell
right.
uncounterable with a
True, true, true.
Mistrized Village.
True. Yeah. Even better. So you pay a mana more and you're safe against the mental misstep that might haunt you. And here we have a voice. Okay. Putting more and more pressure. So now there needs to be a
Yeah,
board
so
wipe.
they are playing quickly, but I think they have. I mean, this is both players are. It's both players' responsibility to maintain the correct game state,
Absolutely. Yeah.
especially when something happens like you play your Hei Bai and then you don't shuffle off the Hei Bai trigger, and then you play a Ponder and you don't shuffle off the Ponder, and you put another Hei Bai into play and you don't shuffle the library. Like this is there is information here that should not have been present.
That is true. Yeah.
So I think this is probably looks like a Wrath Disguise. No, he's making something uncounterable, and then it's probably going to be some form of board wipe. Toxic Deluge is not it here.
Yeah. It's a dam.
It's a dam.
Yeah. That's not bad. I mean, Hei Bai doesn't really have anything to offer except for Emrakul, I think. I think the list plays Emrakul, and he just drew Emrakul.
There is he just drew an Emrakul,
Oh,
and
okay.
I think I mean 5 minutes on the clock, sure, but this is going to be a hard game to lose, especially when you're not playing against like any lightning bolts or something of the type. Um,
Simply because you have that much card advantage. That's true. Yeah.
exactly. So he has to. There is the kind of situation where if he just plays Emrakul, then Aang can airbend the spell, which means that the extra turn he gets, if there's nothing in Aang's hand, then Emrakul's not on the board to be blocked by the Aang and be removed from combat. So he does have to like find some other things to do, but we already see his Swords to Plowshares. He's discarding to hand size and saying go after playing a land. So he's probably just gonna pass the turn a little bit until he gets to a point where he can safely deploy the Emrakul. Tainted Pact might find him a different win condition here. He has.
I mean, due to the falsely surveilled sanction, we have enchantment engrave. He just discarded Shurikai. So we have enchantment, instant, sorcery, land, artifact,
Yeah.
which is 5 types already. I think there is no creature in the graveyard.
Counterspell.
But this means we have to get to 8 mana. Maybe
Yeah.
even aiming at activating the Mistrized Village so it doesn't. But then
So he
again,
has 2 mana
activating the
more.
Mistrized Village would be a bit cute, or actually, against the Aang activation, you know?
Yeah, bending Aang. Yeah. I think just having a counterspell open is better.
Okay, we have
So
a
he
Solitude
okay.
coming in. Yeah, just
Uncounterable Solitude.
trying to get some life back. Makes sense, I guess. And it's the same as in game 1. You simply can't defeat the life, the card advantage here. I mean,
Yeah.
as we see, Hei Bai is more busy with deciding which cards to discard than actually being happy about the cards that he draws. And there's all the good stuff in this hand. We have Counterspell revealed. We have Force of Negation.
He lets this trade happen.
This could have been better.
Now he counts cards. He gets a creature, which I don't think he had before, and he's going to play the Emrakul
This
with
looks
1
like
mana
an
open.
Emrakul. Yeah.
And it looks like it's going to get airbent, so. Well, there
No,
was
it's
Artifact
not
as
gonna
well.
get
Yeah,
airbent because there's 1 mana missing
Ah!
to cast Aang.
He's tapped down to 4, yeah, so.
But I think there is an On Thin
Yeah,
Ice and a
okay.
counterspell in hand, so I would have at least countered the Emrakul here. He could have done that. I don't really see why you would not counter it. I mean, I get the idea that next turn he's on the play, Hei Bai is on the play, and then
Well,
you get
yeah,
to
he can cast Aang
and
and
on thin ice
on
it.
thin ice
Yes,
Aang.
yes,
Yeah, so
yes. But
that
if your opponent is on
that's
6 HP, I'm not sure. Maybe this was a concession going towards, okay, neither of us is really benefiting from an early draw, so I would rather give you the win because it looks like you're winning the game within the next 10 minutes or something, maybe it goes in that direction.
yeah, I mean, even if that trade happens, then there's still plenty of things that the Hei Bai deck can find. Just casting Hei Bai the turn after that gives you a 4/4 in play, which means you might be able to win over the once the extra turns start just by dealing damage. He was at 10, I think. No, he was at 13 or something. So that's plus one more creature. If he finds a psychic frog or something, then he's in much better shape already. So I think the concession was sort of a okay. Well, it's not. It's basically over, and we don't have to fight it out.
Yeah. Okay, guys.
Yeah. All
Thanks a
right.
lot for tuning in. It
Thanks
was
for
an
watching.
interesting matchup, and we will
Absolutely.
see each other in game 3. See you over
See you
there.
next time.